whatever we can get out there. So, and we've had exciting news of signings, and there's just so much has been going on this last week. So let's go ahead and start for now with LeSean McCoy, that addition. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that signing overall. And then now that we've also gotten to hear from him, he spoke to the media the other day, which if you haven't gotten a chance to see that, it's up on Buccaneers.com. So based on the signing and then what you've heard from him saying in his media session, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'll get to LeSean in a second. I wanted to start by saying something I forgot last week, which was the first time I was back in the office doing this. That the only reason I can do this without wearing a mask is I'm in my own office with the door closed and nobody else in here. Otherwise, I, like everybody else, has to wear a mask everywhere we go. I didn't want anybody watching this to think that I'm messing up with the rules and endangering the team, because player safety and getting the season going is the number one issue. So there's my mask right there.
There
also,
it is.
Also, that lanyard has a chip tracer in it. If I get within 10 feet of a player, it starts beeping in a very annoying noise. It makes me feel like a criminal. So believe me, that won't happen.
Yes. And it's funny because it makes me think that it's like a shock collar. Like I think about that with dogs where they get close to the fence and it like beeps to warn them. That I'd love to see if you kept going, if it also has a bit of a shock factor in it. I feel like that would
find out.
Yeah, let's not find out.
The noise is bad. The noise is bad enough. Believe me on that. LeSean McCoy, yes, he got signed early enough yesterday. I know it had been reported for several days, but he still had to do the COVID test. And he had to do the normal physical, but he got it all done in time on Tuesday morning to go out on the field with the team. So he's already had one, and he's doing one now, I presume, a workout with the team. And then he did one of these Zoom interviews afterwards, and I really enjoyed his interview. You can tell a guy is not phoning it in. He's actually really paying attention and looking for answers when he makes like good-natured jokes. He's not just saying whatever cliche comes.
One day at a time, give it 110%.
Yeah. Somebody asked him several times he was asked about what he thought his role would be in the offense. And he answered, well, I think I'll probably get somewhere between 20 and 25 carries a game. And my brain went immediately, before I realized it was a joke. I'm like, wait, that's like the featured back. Like very few guys get 25 carries in a game. And if they do, they're like Ezekiel Elliott. It's not a common thing in today's NFL. And then he cracked and started laughing. He doesn't know. Nobody knows yet what his role is going to be. But this is a guy that averaged 4.6 yards per carry last year with the Chiefs. Now his role was reduced and he didn't really get to play in the postseason, but he was pretty good when he was on the field. And he's 32 years old. He's coming off his lowest production season because he didn't get to play that much of his career. But I still think this is a guy that might have something to offer. We're going to find out. And it kind of makes that running back room catch up to the tight ends and the receivers in terms of there's a lot of guys there, and it's hard to tell who's going to get fed the football the most. But we'll find out. It's something they have to figure out pretty quickly, of course, with the short training camp.
Yeah, that's true. And just a reminder to everyone, we always love answering your questions. So go ahead and put those in the comment section underneath the Facebook Live video. And I know that, we just talked about the fact that we don't exactly know what LeSean McCoy's role is going to be, but we did see that Clifton asked what kind of impact can you see him having at his age? So knowing the LeSean McCoy that we've seen in his 6 Pro Bowls in those years, how similar or different do you feel like he could be? Or just even looking at this Bucs offense and what they might need, looking at maybe why they signed him, what would your guess be about what they want him to be doing?
I think he's something of an insurance policy. We did have 3 running backs go on the COVID list. Now that's probably temporary, and it doesn't even mean that any of them or all of them contracted the virus. They could have just been in contact with someone who did. So, at the moment you're down a few bodies, but also in the regular season, you're counting on either Ronald Jones becoming more of a receiver or Keyshawn Vaughn, the rookie, coming in. And they think he can be a pass catcher. And I want to differentiate, and Ronald Jones actually sort of alluded to this. I'm sorry, not Ronald Jones. LeSean McCoy actually alluded to this when he was talking yesterday, that there's a difference between being the check down guy. The quarterback looks around, can't find anybody open, checks it down to the running back who's out in the flat. Most running backs can do that just fine, but they offenses will ask running backs to go split out into the slot and run actual receiver routes, not necessarily deep ones, but a number of different receiver routes. And he mentioned that he can do that. And I think the team believes that Keyshawn Vaughn can probably do that too, but you don't really know. You don't know for sure. And because there's such an abbreviated time before the season starts, it's probably a little, I don't know, you feel a little unsure about expecting a rookie to do exactly what you're hoping he will do. Now, running back is a position that a lot of rookies can assimilate into the NFL very quickly. There's rookies who make big impacts at running back every year, more so than most positions, but still they don't have a lot of time. So you're not sure. So, and Bruce and Jason Light have both talked about how in today's NFL, most teams have a running back by committee. I think that's what Bruce Arians wants. It also it gives you depth. So if the guys aren't available for injury or illness or other reason, you have other guys available. And I think that's what happened with the Chiefs last year. He did a lot early on, and then his role kind of diminished because they had other guys. And getting through the season, it might take all of those guys.
Yeah, that's true. Scotty Martinez asked, how is Gronk looking coming a year out of practice? Does he look like he never skipped a beat or look a little sluggish?
He looks big. He looks very big. I watched the offense's practices on Monday and Tuesday. They're running a lot of routes. And, as far as I can tell, he looks like he's moving just fine. I did highlight one play at the very end on Monday. They were doing red zone throws, and for most of the receivers, those were back corner fades. This isn't giving anything away because these are regular routes that every team runs and practices. They were running slants and posts and so on. And they were running some routes where the tight ends end up in the back of the end zone. And Tom Brady threw it like 15 feet in the air because he knew that Gronk could go up. And Gronk is 6'6", 200, whatever he is now, 60 pounds. I know that's what he's trying to get to. He's already 6'6" with long arms, but he also jumps. And I mean, he caught a ball so high. I'm like, nobody could have gotten to that. A quarterback can throw it there and know it won't be intercepted, and maybe this guy can go get it. So that was the most eye-opening thing I saw from Gronk on the first couple of days.
That sounds exciting. I can't wait to watch. I mean, yeah, just thinking about that, Cam Brate and, they've just the red zone options now, and Mike Evans and how big and long he is. Like, it really does feel like the play can just be Brady covering his eyes and throwing it up. And one of those guys is going to come down with it. That'll be my contribution to the playbook. Okay. I'll tell Byron, this is my idea. Tell him to turn him backwards, heave it over his head. One of those guys has it. Okay. Daniel said, I'm nervous about our depth in the defensive line and outside linebacker at pass rusher. Have you heard that they have anyone in their sights?
Well, I agree on half of that. I think the D line, the down lineman depth is fine, especially with Ndamukong Suh. Nacho's back. I know we lost Bo Allen, but he really didn't have a ton of snaps last year. Nacho can take more of those. We drafted Khalil Davis. We got Will Golston, Vita Vea. Vita Vea is probably going to take more snaps this year. That's what Todd Bowles said. So I don't think we have any issues with depth on the down linemen. I agree on the outside linebackers, at least in terms of there's not much proven behind Shaq and JPP. Anthony Nelson is obviously the best hope, the best case scenario. The draftee, the fourth round pick that I know they felt really good about getting him in the fourth round last year, saw his rookie season kind of slowed down by hamstring injuries, but they liked what he did when he was in practice. If he could step up and be the next Carl Nassib, that third man in the rotation or a guy that starts when somebody's not available, I think you'll be fine. But it's definitely fair to be worried about that. Do they have anybody? There's a lot of guys still unsigned, Clay Matthews types that are unsigned. I don't know if the Bucs are looking at them or not. At the moment, they actually have to get the roster down by a few spots before August 16th. So it's a possibility. It wouldn't shock me. I mean, I was saying all along, I didn't think we were going to sign another running back, and then we signed LeSean McCoy. So
what do we know?
Yeah. Well, I just think that had a lot to do with it feeling like a good fit and maybe worried about the depth there. Mm-hmm. So it could be the same issue.
Yeah. Sean said, Tristan mentioned last week in his interview with the media, he was looking forward to going against the best pass rushers in the league, including Shaq. How fun is that matchup going to be in practice? And then I'll add my little part onto the question of how important is that for him to have guys like that in practice with such a reduced offseason, no preseason games. I mean, you kind of forget the impact that having good players on your team has on your team in practice.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And he's going to need those guys to sharpen him iron on iron. He's not going to get any preseason games. The first time he takes a live snap will count, and he'll be protecting Tom Brady, presuming he wins the right tackle job. And of course, Bruce Arians said no rookie's guaranteed a job, so he still has to win it. But he's obviously the guy that they're expecting to be the one to step in there. It's a tough transition for even the best offensive tackle prospects to transition from the college into the NFL. And that's even from an O-line factory like Iowa. I mean, those guys, you could hardly find a guy that you could expect to be more ready for the NFL to make that instant transition than Tristan Wirfs. So that's good news, but it's still a tough position to make a transition at. And that's particularly true in pass blocking. And he's going to, right off the bat, he's going to have Cameron Jordan, like you said, and there's not a lot of let up on the schedule. There's a lot of good pass rushers there. So yeah, if Shaq can, give him a little welcome to the NFL, this is what it's like here, and JPP as well, that'll help a lot. But you know what I liked about Tristan Wirfs, because that questioner was mentioning his interview the other day. He wasn't really willing to go with that common, hey, you're such a nice, he's clearly he seems like a gentle, nice guy when you're watching him on these interviews. He's like, do you have a switch that flips and then you're a mean, nasty dude on the field? And he's like, no, not really. I don't think you have to flip a switch. You just have to beat your guy and then beat him again on the next snap and then beat him again on the next snap. And then that's just as good as talking trash and spitting and yelling at him. If you just beat him constantly, that's as intimidating as being a mean, nasty guy and flipping the switch. I just really like that answer. I thought it was very genuine.
Yes, I agree with that. And it's true. I mean, we think so much about whatever kind of attitude you have to have while you do your job. If you're doing your job, who cares? I'd much rather have a guy that's nice and gets his job done than a guy that's trash talking and mean all the time and then, gets beat.
Yeah. I mean, I know before we started this, a couple minutes before we started, I started just yelling and screaming obscenities at you just to flip that switch to get ready.
Exactly. That's how
not everybody's like that.
On. That's why I was like, I know Scott's ready now.
Scott's ready. Let's go.
Byron, we kind of talked about this in terms of the LeSean McCoy signing and then also with defensive ends and, different other positions. But he asked, do you think we'll have another big signing before the season starts?
If so, I think it would be at outside linebacker. I think LeSean McCoy is probably the big shot you took right before camp. It's not a time when teams, and the Bucs in particular, have generally added big names. It happens from time to time. You got the Logan Mankins trade a few years ago and stuff like that. Sure. And the Buccaneers clearly are all in. I mean, every move that has been made this offseason has proven that they're all in. So it wouldn't be shocking, but it's not something that normally happens.
Okay. Jermaine asked, how many Pro Bowlers do you think we will produce this year?
Jermaine Phillips, former Buccaneer Jermaine Phillips?
Nope.
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 They used to call him Flip. That was his nickname. I like that nickname. How many Pro Bowlers? I think we talked about this, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week, maybe, that somebody suggested they thought five or six, and we thought
I thought that was crazy, and then I started counting it. I mean, we already had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Shaq last year. So, and all those guys obviously are quite capable of repeating. And especially once you get your foot in the door in the Pro Bowl and you've been to a few of them, you get that Pro Bowl momentum. I'm not sure the Pro Bowl is actually going to be played, by the way, but they will probably still pick it even if they don't play it. So you could start with those three as a pretty decent guess. And we're all hoping that the greater attention that's going to come to the Bucs because we have Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and we're considered good postseason candidates will shine a spotlight on guys that maybe have been underappreciated. Obviously, the poster boy for that, for good reason, is Levante David. You could see that. A lot of people think this might be an opportunity for Ali Marpet or Ryan Jensen, some of the good offensive linemen, Donovan Smith, that have been playing well. I don't think you'd get more than one of them, but you might get one of those guys. Maybe Ali Marpet gets his first Pro Bowl. And already you're at 5 at this point, right? So maybe if Devin White becomes the playmaker that everybody expects, he could be a top 10 linebacker in the NFL, and which might make him top 5 in the NFC, and he could get in there. Bruce Arians said the other day that he thinks Carlton Davis is a top 10 cornerback in the NFL. If that's the case and it's recognized, he's got a shot at the Pro Bowl. So, no, all those guys aren't going to make it. But I could see if the Bucs win, and that's what happened in the 90s. When they were winning, they were getting 5, 6, one time 8 guys in the Pro Bowl. You stop winning, you go for a few years, and you're happy when you get 1 or 2. So if the Bucs win, I would say 5.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Buccaneers Insider Live presented by Miller Lite. Thanks as always for those awesome questions. We are so excited that football is happening again out there at Advent Health Training Center. And we're also getting even closer to Scott and I getting to do training camp live. So I know it's tough for people knowing they won't be able to come to training camp practices. We're going to do our best to get you as much coverage and make you feel as much like you were there as possible. So that's going to be starting in about a week and a half, hopefully. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all those questions, and we'll see you next week.